For more on Prime Minister Ishiba's political future, we're joined by Seijiro Takeshita, Professor of Management and Information from the University of Shizuoka. Professor, Mr. Ishiba has dismissed media reports of him mulling a resignation, but he has, secured this latest trade deal with the US. But despite this, his premiership remains under pressure. Do you think Mr. Ishiba can survive to hold on to power?
It'd be pretty difficult considering the fact that he's not only getting quite a lot of pressure from the opposition, but particularly from inside. And unfortunately, I don't think he has that much of a strong alliance or supporters within the LDP, as was in case, for example, like in case of Mr. Abe. So I think it would be very difficult for him to continue to sustain his leadership. Particularly knowing the fact that, we've had devastating loss on the LDP in both upper and lower house, meaning that all the decision-making process will take enormous time and one-on-one negotiation with the various, aspects of the opposition parties, which is very time-consuming and excessively delicate operation for him ahead.
And, Mr. Ishiba just hurriedly called this press conference in the last hour just to deny that he was resigning. What do you think is the significance of that denial?
Well, I think what he really wants to do is go further and basically analyze the U.S. trade deal. He's constantly been saying that he'd like to basically finish and complete that under his responsibility. So I think it's very clear that he wants to see that out. Now, people are, and the market is recognized that it's 15%, but we all know that Mr. Trump and his regime tend to play a game of poker. So obviously, things could turn around 180 degrees tomorrow. And what we have to see is more detail of how these things will be conducted, particularly with the pressure on the Japanese domestic side, such as rice and meat, which is very, very delicate on political factors in Japan.
Right. Now, it's a question of eventuality, not if, but when Mr. Ishiba resigns. Would his exit trigger a leadership race in his party? What can we expect next?
Well, I think what will happen is that most of the major components like Mr. Aso or Mr. Kishida, who had been the ex-prime ministers, is consulting with them. But particularly, one of the reasons why he's continued is continued negotiation regarding tariffs with the United States. But that basically is virtually, well, not over. Of course, the detail hasn't been announced yet. But basically, once that is through, I think there will be increased pressure for him to resign. And again, the point is that he really doesn't have a strong backup. He doesn't have that much of a majority of backup, even within the LDP. So I think he's going to really struggle from here onwards. Right.
And the latest election results, right, that they have lost the upper house majority as well as the lower house last October. Do these results, combined results, complicate the process?
Oh, yes, definitely, without a speck of doubt. I mean, even if the government was able to come to some kind of an agreement with the United States in regards to this proposition by the American delegates, will he be able to get a consensus with a diet, especially if it has anything to do with the budgetary concern? And he's under very severe pressure considering the fact that, all these populist parties in Japan have announced various measures such as cut in consumption tax or the abolition or throwing cash in people's face, et cetera, which basically troubles our fiscal policy further. And will he get a consensus on that? That would be a very difficult task, especially as he does not have the majority in both of these houses.
And I know it's a bit speculative at this point, but who do you think are front runners to replace Mr. Ishiba?
Well, at this point, there are some candidates, but I think it'd be very difficult to really pinpoint. Possibly some of the competitors that were there when Mr. Ishiba was basically running for the prime ministership. But at this point, I think what people are focusing on is not who is the next, but whether he will resign quickly or not. I think that is the focal point that we're seeing right now. I think even the LDP is under quite a lot of confusion, especially as you just noted, after the devastating loss to the upper house. So I think the power, I would say, picture is definitely changing within the LDP. So I think we have to wait and see for a lot more secure, announcement to be made from Mr. Ishiba himself.
It's interesting, Professor, you said that people are now the question is, when will he resign? But, it's been less than a year since he was appointed as Prime Minister. Now, with such a short tenure and an expected new leader, how would this changing political situation impact or influence Japan's foreign policy?
Well, one of the sad thing about the whole issue is that LDP have been basically caught, almost red-handed with the lack of policy to answer the frustration of the Japanese people, particularly in regards to inflation and also some of the foreign policy. Now, a lot of news sources are saying Japan is running into right-wing, but, it's a totally different phenomenon from what you're seeing in Europe, for example. So I think it would be dangerous to put that into the same category. But that said, the frustration is starting to mount. And I think many of the opposition were very clever to clinch that, whereas LDP was basically not doing much really to cope with it. So I think, the new leaders would have to basically understand, quite a lot of international relationship that would also comply and basically soothe the frustration of the Japanese voters, because it's very clear from this election that there's been a mounting frustration that are starting to creep up amongst the Japanese people. So I think those are the issues that they would have to tackle, particularly in regards to trade and also foreign policies, particularly the entrance of the foreigners, and also, of course, taxation and, of course, the inflation pressure that we're seeing right now in Japan.
All right, Professor, thanks for that analysis. Thanks for joining us. And that was Seijiro Takeshita, Professor of Management and Information from the University of Shizuoka.